What is your favorite moment with Joe?
Oh my goodness, what is my favorite moment with Joe? So, I'm going to tell you about this book at the end of my little video here, but I actually wrote something in this book about when I was a young girl. My favorite moment was waking up on a Sunday morning and finding you, Uncle Joe, fast asleep on the couch because you had been out all night partying with your band and would arrive at my parents' house at 2 or 3 in the morning. And the 8 children in the Starr's household would wake up on Sunday morning, and there you were on the couch, fast asleep. So you had 8 little kids jumping on top of you saying, "Uncle Joe, wake up, it's time for breakfast." And on very little sleep, you would get off that couch and go into the kitchen, and we would all sit around the picnic table having a breakfast together. And I will never forget that memory of you.
Perfect. Next question is, do you have any wishes for Joe?
Oh, Uncle Joe. My wish for you, honestly, is that you live to be 200 years old. And although I know that probably will not happen, what I know about you and what I wish for you is that for whatever time you are left on this earth, that you have the happiest of days, the healthiest of days, that you, I know, enjoy every minute that you spend with Carol and John and Devin and your New York family when we come to visit you. I just want you to live out the rest of your life as you have lived these 100 years, being the amazing person that you are.
Perfect. And one more question. Do you have anything else to say to Uncle Joe?
Uncle Joe, I could go on, people tell me that I like to talk to the family, and I could go on and on and on and on to you with things I want to say to you. So let me just tell you that I wrote something. I made this book for you. You'll see it in a little while. And it is filled with pictures and memories of you over the years. And it is signed by lots of people in the family. Everybody wrote a message to you. And of course, in my style, because I always have a lot to say, I wrote a really, really long message to you, Uncle Joe. So everything that I want to say to you is written here. It is from the bottom of my heart. I was sitting in my living room crying as I was writing this message. But I just want you to know that you are the most special person in the world. And I love you with all of my heart. And I'm just so happy that we all made this trip from New York to Olympia to be with you on this most amazing day. I love you forever.
What is your favorite moment with Uncle Joe?
Oh, my favorite moment with Uncle Joe is probably at my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. He was there playing away, and we all were together, and he's been such a big part of our family parties, and that was a big one for him. So that was probably my favorite time.
Do you have any wishes for Uncle Joe?
I wish he could live another 100 years. I want him to be happy and healthy every single day from now until the end of his life.
And do you have anything else to say to Uncle Joe?
I want to say that I love you, and you are the best uncle that we ever had, and you are an amazing person, and you have brought music into our lives like nobody else could. You're the best. Wow.
With Uncle Joe. What is my favorite moment with Uncle Joe? So there are so many, it's hard to pick just one. But I would say that the favorite moment definitely was centered around music making together and having the brilliant musician that my Uncle Joe is, spend time and hang out and have fun and make music and encourage us to keep playing our instruments and just loving the vibe and everything being so fun and happy. We had many, many, many of those moments. So anytime there was music happening, that would be the favorite moment. But I'm so lucky and grateful to say that that happened multiple times over the years.
What are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
My wishes for Uncle Joe are that he continue to feel good, be happy. You know, my uncle is a man who has left and continues to leave a huge impression on me in how to live. So I feel like anything I wish for him, he's already doing. I want him to be happy. He's happy. When you ask him how he is, he says he's wonderful every time. And I want him to be wonderful and to feel wonderful and to feel happy on and on and on and on, 100 more years.
Perfect. And lastly, is there anything else that you would like to say about Uncle Joe or to Uncle Joe?
Say it again. Is there anything else I'd like to say to Uncle Joe?
Yeah, is there anything else that you would like to say about Uncle Joe or to Uncle Joe?
Okay. So here's what I will say to Uncle Joe, to you, my uncle. I want to say thank you for everything, for your understanding of me. I always like to say that you got me. You got me. You understood me from the beginning of time. And because you understood me, you were able to guide me always and be that presence. I want to say like you were my North Star. And I don't know if I can honestly express accurately what your being has done to improve my life, enhance my life, and really, whether you know or not, you've gotten me through some very dark times. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world that you were my uncle and that I have you, and I'm going to be 60 years old and I have you all these years. And I love you very much.
What is your favorite moment with Uncle Joe?
Oh my goodness. I would have to say just being with him, having conversations. So there are so many I can't even begin to start, but I'll remember one when I was a kid sitting at the kitchen table and Uncle Joe looked up at the clock and he said to me, "Isn't it amazing how you look at the clock and it just looks right when certain times just look right?" And it was his way of just seeing the world and seeing things in very interesting ways that made you feel like, wow, you just think differently. So we just had so many conversations like that, just about thinking about life differently and looking at the world differently and looking at art, music, everything differently.
Okay, what are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
My wishes for him is that however long he has left on this earth, that he has peace and happiness and just enjoys his days.
Okay, and is there anything else that you would like to say to Uncle Joe?
There's so much to say to Uncle Joe, just how much we love him and appreciate him, and all the times we spent in nature with him, and just being with him, and him just appreciating us and loving all of us for who we were.
just love him for everything that he is.
What is your favorite moment with Uncle Joe?
My favorite moment with Uncle Joe was when he played the song Margie at every family party. My name is Margaret, and everybody called me Marge or Margie. So at every family party, he would start playing Margie, and everyone would sing.
What kind of life did Uncle Joe live?
He lived a life. His life was very positive. He always. This is hard. He lived life to the fullest. Enjoyed every moment. Enjoyed always being with family, and just made the best of every single day.
How has Uncle Joe impacted your life?
Uncle Joe has taught me to live life to the fullest and really appreciate being alive and staying healthy, taking care of myself. And he really has inspired me to enjoy every single day.
And what are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
I wish that he continues to stay healthy and he enjoys every single day that he has on this earth. And life is just peaceful for him.
Okay, and anything else that you would like to say to Uncle Joe?
Uncle Joe, thank you so much for all you have given us, all you have taught us, all of your music, for bringing us Carol and John. Thank you for being you.
What is your favorite moment with Uncle Joe?
Oof, my favorite moment with Uncle Joe. Let me think. I would say when I came out here, it was in the 90s, and I can't remember exactly the year, 92, 93. He was playing a gig in Seattle. So he was like, yeah, come with me, and let's just go see Seattle. So the two of us got in the car, drove to Seattle, and he had to warm up for his gig, so I went and explored the city, and then I came back, and it was like this outdoor gig, and he was just playing his piano, and he just looked over at me and smiled like he usually does, and it was just a great moment, a great memory.
How has Uncle Joe impacted your life?
I would say his constant positive spirit has been with me forever. I mean, you ask Uncle Joe, how you feeling? And he says, wonderful, always. He's always said that. No matter what's going on in his life, no matter any challenges, trials and tribulations, everything was always wonderful. So I feel like I've really kind of held on to that and sort of everything I do, trying to hold on to that positivity.
And what are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
My wishes are that he just continues on in his seemingly never-ending path here, which is great. That he just continues on and keeps doing his thing because he's just an amazing human being. There's no one like him. No one like him.
And is there anything else you would like to say to Uncle Joe or about Uncle Joe?
Listen, what more to say? an amazing human being. Uncle Joe, we love you. Happy birthday. It's a tremendous moment to be out here for his birthday, and we're so happy that we can make this happen. Really, we're really lucky to have this moment with you.
What is your favorite memory with Uncle Joe?
Right. So this being take two, I would say I'm a little more practiced, and 3 things came to mind. One was our trip around Mount St. Helens, which was just awesome. But just sitting around the kitchen table and playing music together were the 3 things that really just were striking for me.
How has Uncle Joe impacted your life?
So, also take 2 on this one. Inspiration, a sense of freedom, and a self-expression were 3 things that really, I guess I would say, enlivened me. Yeah, that's what I would go with.
And what are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
Let's see. I'd say 110. We'll come back here, but actually we'd do it before then too. So, there you go.
And is there anything else you would like to say directly to Uncle Joe or about Uncle Joe?
Well, so Uncle Joe, if you're watching this, I would say, first of all, I know you want me to call you Joe, but I have trouble with that. So, for this time, I will say Joe, even though I'll go Joe. I hope to see you again soon. Happy to come back here, celebrate 101, 102. We can do it every year. So, best wishes and long life on your 100th birthday.
What is your favorite memory with Uncle Joe?
Favorite memory of Uncle Joe is one afternoon we were by my sister-in-law's house and he playing keyboard, I was playing drums, and my brother-in-law Jimmy and my brother-in-law Chris were playing guitar, and it was a good memory.
Okay, and how has Uncle Joe impacted your life?
Uncle Joe, just his lifestyle, his appreciation of life, it's fantastic. You know, he just makes you want to enjoy life.
And what are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
My wishes for Uncle Joe is to just enjoy life and enjoy his retirement and his family.
And is there anything else that you would like to say to Uncle Joe?
This is directed at Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
I would like to say I have lots of fond memories. I'm very pleased and happy that we were able to come out to Seattle and celebrate with Uncle Joe. And I just wish him a very happy birthday. 100 years.
What is your favorite memory with Uncle Joe?
Actually, I think it's the first time I met him, which was at my wedding. Something in my throat. Hold on. All right. The first time I met him, which was at my wedding, and all the members of my brother who came from Israel, I was kind of worried what he was going to do. Every time I turned around, I saw Uncle Joe talking to my brother. So that's the first memory. I was like, who is this guy talking to my brother? So it was really good that his memory was pretty cool.
How has Uncle Joe impacted your life?
Again, he's a cool guy, so every time we see him, he has a great presence.
Okay, and what are your wishes for Uncle Joe?
Well, a much longer, happy life, and he's looking great. I hope he continues that way and continues with the music.
And is there anything else that you would like to say directly to Uncle Joe or about Uncle Joe?
Not that I can think of it right now, but just keep on being cool.
How did you meet Joe?
I called Yenny's music store and told him I wanted to take piano lessons. And they said, call Joe Baque. So I called him And he said, bring some music and show up and we'll see. So I played for him and he played. And he said, okay. So I started lessons with him. And after about a month, he said, look, you have to fill up half the room. I'm not going to fill the whole room. And if you can't do that, then we'll break this off. Well, I did. And from that, he started me writing music, playing music, and then we became really good friends. And Jim,
well, I started out because I wanted to find a vocal coach, and Susan had recommended him, and he had played for a lot of singers that we knew about that were very good. And I don't know how we got moved over to, he started teaching me the vibraphone. And he actually gave me one, and I took it home, and I said, this is not working, so I brought it back to him. And as a payment, I got up on the top of his house, not this house, the other house they used to live on, and I cleaned all the leaves off the roof of his house. I couldn't pay him at the time, and that was my payment.
Awesome. What is your favorite memory with Joe?
oh gosh. Well, my favorite memory of him, and this happens almost every time you see him, is, he'll sense if you're upset about something. And the next thing you know, you're totally calm. And you're just having this very present conversation with him. And it's like magic. And that's my favorite thing.
My favorite moment is when he had a very good friend named Jack Percival. And he used to go over when Jack was very ill. And Joe would go over to his house every week and play with him. He was also a piano player. But I remember they were at the Olympia Golf Club, the country club, and Joe and Jack sat there and played a duet concert there. And it was not long after, I think, that Joe passed away. But it was one of the most moving moments I had ever seen.
Yeah.
A man that cared very deeply for his friend and did everything he could to make his last few weeks in this world happy. And just to see the smiles on their face as they were playing was just incredible. I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
Okay, and how has Joe impacted your life?
Oh, gosh. Well, for a long time, he's been trying to get me to understand that music is something that you give to other people. It's not about what other people think about your music. And you're not playing for them to say you're great or anything. You're sharing something of yourself. It's not like baseball. There's not somebody that can be the best. It's, something much more complicated about that. And it's about you sharing you. And that's the most marvelous lesson I've learned from him.
My lesson was that when I first met Joe, he scared me half to death because he reminded my father. My father was a real bully, and I just got that feeling that I just couldn't trust Joe. I didn't feel comfortable around him at all. But it's only in the last 2 or 3, and it was mainly his demeanor. But in the last couple of years, maybe 3 years, as I really kind of found that there's really a kind man who isn't maybe not that much demonstrative to other people, but you felt the the caring. You felt the love of him, and he was always there. But I guess my one regret that I have is that I didn't get to know Joe as Joe many years ago, and that's one thing I just cherish right now, and I certainly want him to know that.
Okay. And do you have anything else to say to Joe or about Joe?
Happy birthday, Joe.
Happy birthday, Joe.
We're looking forward to the second centennial.
Me too.
Perfect. And I'm gonna ask this question. If you have nothing to say, it's okay. But do you have any funny moments with Joe?
Any funny moments?
Anything that stood out?
Oh. Well, the only thing I can think of is there was a house concert, and he was there listening, and the singer had, her own piano player with him. And, but she had, previously, she and Joe had tried to play together. So I told her Joe was there. And she said, "Do you think he'll play with me?" And I said, "Of course he will." So he came up and he played with her. And her piano player was the guy of 9 million notes. He played constantly while the singer was singing. Whereas Joe plays sparsely and supports the singer and lets her shine rather than competing with her. And the funniest thing was this other piano player watching this and watching the difference in her performance. Mm-hmm. And a number of years later, I saw this guy, and guess what? He had become a sparse piano player. And I sat there and I laughed, all because of that lesson with Joe that he hadn't counted on. And so, anyhow, that's one of my favorite stories.
We're grateful that he's been in our life.
Yeah,
We really are.
very much.
All right. So the first question is if you can introduce yourself.
Okay. Well,
Sam Milham.
and I'm Linda Scott. I'm Carol's sister, Joe's sister-in-law.
Perfect. How did you meet Joe?
Well, I was there at the very beginning. I was with my sister when she met Joe on the cruise ship. So that was maybe 38 years ago. So that's how I met Joe.
I met him in a bar here. He was playing piano
At
Carnegie's bar,
That was a restaurant.
restaurant. I was in there for dinner with another woman, and I raved about his piano playing and met him. We became friends.
Awesome. How has Joe impacted your life?
How has Joe impacted my life? Well, he's he's the most wonderful person I think I've ever known. He's always been there for me when I wanted to talk, when I had a problem. We've shared a lot through the years, and I don't know what else he's been wonderful with my sister and my nephew, and he's just been a really big part of my life in a very good way.
We go back 38 years, because he was just playing, I think, a second gig in town when I met him, and we got to be friends, and I played piano, so I was really interested in his pedagogy, and he's taught me a few things, and I've got a couple books. Well, when I was living in California, there's a lady across the road was cleaning out a garage, and she had this piano music book, handwritten by her son, who was a barroom pianist. I don't know his name or her name, but
I got the book, I copied it and gave Joe a copy of it. I was just playing it a little while ago.
Yeah, and I want to say also he's also responsible for us being together because they've been very, very good friends for 38 years, and I wouldn't know Sam if it weren't for Joe. So I wouldn't
know
probably
her if it
would
wasn't for
I
Joe.
probably wouldn't have moved out to Olympia if it weren't for Joe. So yeah.
Awesome. Do you have any other remarks that you would like to say to Joe? Any wishes?
Well, you know, he was a big part of my life. He drove out to my house 4 or 5 times a week. I got a big grand piano, and he played, and I sang, and we hiked and did all sorts of things. And I kept track of his gig schedule, and I'd always go in here and play. And all the bars he played here in Seattle and Tacoma, and then about maybe 7, 8 years ago, he came out to my house off time. He usually came in the afternoons, and he came out there right around dusk, and he was sweating and he was agitated. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, I got a gig at the country club," which he drove to, and he got lost. So I took him to the country club, but that was the first indication that he was old. He's 100 today. I'll be 90 in May.
Well, Joe, I absolutely love you, Joe, and I hope you have more birthdays, and you've really impacted my life in a positive way.
And lastly, do you have any funny moments that come up? Anything that pops into your mind with Joe?
Yeah, well, he played in some weird places, noisy, but never seemed to bother him. And I'd always ask him to play a tune or two that I knew he'd like to play, and he played them.
Well, playing with that rock band, Sour Owl, is kind of funny. With in his 90s, he was the keyboardist for this rock band. That was kind of funny. I mean, he was wonderful, but I don't know of any other funny. Can't think of anything. I'll think of funny things later, I'm sure, but I can't think of anything else right now.
And I guess last question: do you have any wishes for Joe?
Yeah.
I'd wish he'd live another 100.
Yeah, live another 100. Yeah, yeah.
His wife is really good to him, and she keeps him alive, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah.
And how did you meet Joe?
How did I meet Joe? In a bar that used to be owned by a famous jazz player over in Tumwater called the South Pacific. Whilst hosting a blues jam night there, Tommy Russell brought him to meet the guys that was making Tommy Russell so happy. And I knew who he was as soon as he stepped in the main floor in the middle of the crowd. It's got to be him. And I walked up there and I said, "You must be Joe." And he looked at me, got this slow grin on his face. He says, "Yeah, you must be Lynn." I says, "I am." I said, "Tell me, Joe, I heard tell you was an old viper." And when he heard that, he got a big grin on his face. And we went outside in the parking lot and pretended like we were back in the 1930s, hanging out with Paul Mesreau, perhaps. And that's enough I'll say about that without getting convicted of anything.
Okay, and how has Joe impacted your life?
Well, Joe reminded me that being cool is what I've always considered to be the ultimate way to be, and that, you don't necessarily have to have some leg up on everybody else to be cool. is be happy in what you do and do it as cool as you can. Anyway, that's the main thing he's impacted me with. Taught me a lot about growing old, you know. He's 29 years older than me. And nobody when I was younger bothered to tell me about all these aches and pains that are endemic of the aging process.
Do you have any funny moments or any remarks?
What's that?
Do you have any funny moments that you would like to share that you've had with Joe?
Oh. Well, you know what's been rolling through my head all day? It's a trip him and me and Tommy Russell made down to Skamania County in those wild mountains there. They're a lot like the last mainly unexplored wilderness in this state. And we found ourselves peaceably walking through a trillium forest. You know what trilliums are? The flowers? Well, the whole floor of this forest was covered with trilliums, thousands of them. And when we came upon it, it looked like it had snowed in that part of the forest at first. And Joe told me to watch my step. It looked slippery because he thought it was snow. I did at first too, but you know, got closer and saw that they were flowers and that they were trilliums.
Okay, and do you have any other remarks or wishes that you would like to say to Joe?
Say the last part again?
Do you have any remarks or wishes that you would like to say to Joe?
Oh. Well, Joe, I am in no hurry for it to happen, but as soon as you're finished talking the stage here, I can get around to be the coolest guy on the planet. You are currently that guy.
What is your name?
Skyler.
And how did you meet Joe?
I met Joe through the music scene here in Olympia, and I was in a band called Sour Owl, and Joe began filling in every now and again, sitting in, I should say, with the band for quite a few shows, and we had a real good time. And I remember one time after one of the gigs, he looked at us and he goes, "All right, guys, you know, am I in the band or what?" And we thought, absolutely, the answer is yes. Before he asked that question, didn't even think it was an option. So that was the day he joined the band, and then from there, I think he was 88 at the time, and said he was pretty excited because he finally got to play some rock and roll. So I remember that quite fondly, and we spent a lot of years at that point playing many shows and having a really great time. And of course, I learned a tremendous amount from him during those times.
And how long have you known Joe?
Known Joe, well, I guess it'd be about, I'd say 15 years now.
Okay. How has Joe impacted your life?
Joe's impacted my life in a lot of ways. Musically, he's been a role model, and I've gleaned a lot from his wisdom and the ways of music over the years. But also, and on a deeper level, just as the way he carries himself is one of the ways that he's impacted me, because I've used that as a role model as well. And I always thought that Joe carried himself with a lot of grace, and I tried to learn from that.
Okay. And do you have a favorite memory with Joe? Favorite memory or something that was funny that happened?
Yeah, I got a lot of them. First one comes to mind. I don't know. Might be kind of private. I don't know. Of course, now they're all mixing together in my head. So I can't think of one specifically. But I guess I could say one. Well, this wouldn't be a memory, but one of the things I took from him was when he told me to sing like I speak. So, that's not necessarily I think it's a memory, but it's more like advice that I got from him that had another big impact on my life. So.
Okay, and do you have any other remarks or wishes that you would like to say to Joe?
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for all of those things and more. It's been an absolute pleasure being your friend, getting to know you, and to be able to share the stage and experience music with a master has been a total honor. So, thanks from the bottom of my heart.
If you can state your name.
Randy Sundell.
Perfect. And how did you meet Joe?
I had the distinction of knowing Joe for the longest time, almost half his life. I met Joe in my 20s when he was recommended to me by a record executive to be my vocal coach.
How has Joe impacted your life?
Some people have their Yoda, and I have my Joda. Joe is so full of wisdom, and what's so beautiful is he never thinks about the fact that he's dispensing any. He's basically just telling you how he lives his life. And it's a wonderful, wonderful pathway. And I remember when I was a little nervous about singing in public, and Joe was urging me to go out there. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm ready. What if I'm not good enough? And Joe looked at me and he said, Randy, I've been playing piano for 40 years. And if I waited until I thought I was good enough, I'd still be waiting. And I went out there. Joe has healed me after the loss of so many of my family members. He was somebody that I could confide in, and he was somebody who knows how to listen. And in 2015, after I lost my husband, the first place I came was here to Joe and Carol to begin healing. And Joe was my therapist, and his therapy was music. And he got me singing, and he didn't let me stop singing. And through the songs, I was just venting and crying, and it was so helpful. And songs that we had done together so many times were all new. They were different because I was different. And I knew I had made the right decision choosing this destination as my first stop.
Do you have any memories or funny moments with Joe?
Oh gosh. When Joe was giving up his studio in Manhattan, I went and found him an apartment in Pleasantville, New York, near where I was living. And we just were a family. I mean, Joe would come over for meals, and he introduced me to wheat germ because he was very health conscious. Joe was always ahead of his time. I'm trying to think of we played together, we wrote music together. He wrote the music, I wrote the lyrics, we wrote for other performers. We just always had a ball. Joe came to a surprise 35th birthday for me, and he worked a long gig in Manhattan, and he drove all the way up to Cold Springs, New York, so he could be there. And when he arrived, you know, it was like the rock star arrived. And I was just so excited to have him there because he belonged there. He's my family.
What did Joe do in the music industry?
Oh, I mean, Joe has a way of receding his ego and supporting other musicians, other singers. He knows, he listens, he knows where musicians are going in a song, and he is the most amazing accompanist. I've never had anybody like Joe. He's done club dates, he's done fundraisers. He's done cruise ships, which is where he met his wife Carol. He's done everything, and you will never hear Joe boast. He's just living his life, but any of us who have been fortunate enough to have been in his life, we know who he is, and we will sing his praises.
And do you have any remarks or wishes for Joe?
Oh, I just wish him to stay the positive, loving, kind person he is. I wish he could go on tour and spread all this love and joy and empathy with the world, because the world needs a lot more Joe Baques. And people say that other people are special, but truly, this is a special man. And I feel so privileged to have known him as long as I have, and I'm hoping that relationship goes on and on.
Okay, can you state your name?
My name is Lisa Gutkin.
Okay, and how did you meet Joe?
An old boyfriend was on a cruise ship with Joe and came home and said, "You have to meet this amazing piano player that I met on the cruise ship." And of course, we fell in love with him immediately, as one does with Joe. And that was in 1983, maybe? 82, 83, somewhere around there.
So how long have you known Joe?
So you do the math, since 83. Let's see, 93, 103. Oh, so it's almost 40 years. It's almost 40 years that I know Joe. Yeah.
And so how has Joe impacted your life?
I really don't think I would be who I am without Joe. What Joe gave me, it's hard to even explain, but an ability to just be myself when I perform, and just to be giving what I do without too much worry about what's coming back to me. And so I can give you a couple of examples of that. I would be a big stage performer, always putting out energy. And Joe would be sitting back in a restaurant playing like this. And I could not figure out how you can play if you're not being paid attention to you. How do you possibly just sit there and play if nobody's applauding you, nobody's looking at you, nobody's talking to you? And Joe would say, "You see that toe tapping over there? They're appreciating me. I'm doing my job. You see that little girl nodding her head? I'm doing my job." And it's a very subtle thing, but taking that into your performing being is an amazing thing. And I've taken that into everything that I do. This ability to be supportive and not Oh, I still like the attention. I still like the big stage and the attention being on me, but taking it in a way that's very sharing. He's amazing. It's an amazing gift that he has. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any specific memories or funny moments?
Oh, I don't know.
That's okay. No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah.
And do you have any other remarks or wishes that you would like to say?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I had a mess of things earlier, but let me just take 1 second here. There was another story that I wanted to tell.
And you can take your time.
Yeah, you'll edit.
Cut it, so it looks good. I know it's kind of hard to be in front of the camera on the spot.
Yeah, no, I just really. Just being part of the whole presence, it's just too much. It's a lifetime of influences and wonderful. We used to walk around the Nisqually River, the Nisqually. We used to do that whole nature walk and just talk about music and life and how to be accepting of people and how to take that into your art. So that you're really listening to what's happening and reacting, and it's just an amazing thing what he's done in life and creating a life out here with Carol and making such an impact on Olympia. I mean, of course we knew he came here at first. He was like, "What am I gonna do? How am I gonna gig?" And eventually he just never even had to leave. He just had so much musical richness in this town. It's a beautiful thing that he just creates a world of beauty around him. So.
And do you have any wishes for Joe?
Yeah, I wish he should live at least another several years. Not many, because who wants to live that old? But yeah, and still have nachas, much nachas. Joe, nachas. We wish you nachas.
Okay, if you can state your name.
It's Devin Hewish.
Perfect. And how did you meet Joe?
I met Joe. I was dating his son, and John and I had dated for a while before I met his parents. And man, I think the first time I met Joe was he came out to John's house in Holiday, and met him there. They were there for not quite a week, and that was where I got to meet him for the first time.
Okay. How long have you known Joe?
John and I, we did this math last night, actually. We've been together almost 9 years, so it would definitely be about 9 years that I've had the privilege of knowing him.
And how long? Sorry, I'm being sidetracked myself now.
Okay.
I'll cut it all out. How has Joe impacted your life?
Man, that's a loaded question. Joe came, I had dated John for a bit, and it was shortly after John and I was dating that my dad passed away unexpectedly. And Joe, I don't think he knew it, but he really kind of became my next father figure. Joe, even as of just this past week, he's always full of great advice. And through some of the hard times with grieving my dad, he was always full of wisdom and advice to help me process that grieving, or when I had experienced some pretty significant changes in life, whether that be through employment or things going on with my family that stemmed from the grief. He always had something tremendously powerful to share that was so simplistic too, but needed that reminder. He always had just perfect timing to drop a 2 to 3 liner of something to remind you that he sees you and remind you to keep making a difference, because you are making one whether you realize it or not. Great man.
Awesome. Do you have any specific memory or fun moments with Joe?
So I have been blessed to have a lot of fun moments with Joe just in the 8 or 9 years that I've known him. We have had the opportunity, one of our first trips together as a family, we went down to Zion's. And that was a memory that will forever live with me. I loved every minute of that. We had the opportunity to go to Hawaii together. And I'll never forget, though, we have all these great trips, and one of my fondest memories, because it was just a little bit of New Yorker in him coming out. They drove to Utah, and this was back at John's holiday house. And it was time for them. They were leaving and loading up the car, and we were trying to get the dog wrestled up and put into the car. And so I'm trying to find. John had tasked me with getting the dog and getting him put into the car, and I was struggling with it. And he's like a 6-pound little guy. It shouldn't have been so hard. And trying to lure him in with treats and whatnot. And Joe was on his way out to the car and picks up the dog, and it wasn't animal abuse, but he picks him up and just kind of throws him in the back seat, and he turns to me and says, "My way's better," and then gets in the car. So I loved it. It was something that'll just forever be Joe to me. Just that one little moment of "my way's better," and that was the only time I ever heard him even get the slightest bit cross. And it wasn't even cross. It was just a New Yorker. He was ready to get in the car, ready to go. So it was fantastic. My way's better.
Do you have any remarks or wishes that you would like to say to Joe?
Thank you for treating me as your own, for raising a remarkable son, for exemplifying what I hope to be someday. I appreciate you always reminding me to be a gentleman to the women in my life. I truly admire the way that you treat Carol. I was talking to my sister and my mom before I came out, and they both commented that every time they've had the privilege to visit with him, that he is the most respectful and humble, but total gentleman. My mom's missed my dad significantly the last 5 years, and she says that she still feels somehow, even though it's not a courtship when Joe's around, because he's just such a gentleman. He always calls her doll. Hey, doll. And he's, for whatever reason, has always remembered my mom and my sister. Sometimes doesn't even remember me, but he just, the gentleman that he is, will always remember the women in his life. Thank you for a remarkable legacy and reminding me of what I hope to achieve someday. I know I won't live to 100, but hopefully someday I measure up to be half the man that you are. Thank you for the lives that you've impacted, not just mine and John's, but my family's, our friends, everybody that's met you. And I hope you know the tremendous impact that you have on countless.
Okay, what is your name?
John Baque.
And how did you meet Joe?
Joe Baque is my father.
And let me restart. How has Joe impacted your life?
Oh my goodness. I would say that my dad has taught me to never stop working on myself. He's been an example of someone who has taken childhood trauma and has refused to let it define his life. He has continued to better himself every day, and I take that into my life now. One phrase that he has always said is that he will never do anyone else harm, and that's something that I try to live my life by now.
Okay. Do you have any specific memory or funny moments with Joe?
You know, growing up, we spent a lot of time in the car together, driving me to swim practice. And so just, you know, driving me to swim practice, him, poor guy, listening to like my horrible rock and rap music. And he was so great at, you know, because, you know, he was a classical and jazz pianist, so I'm sure he didn't love that, but he took it in stride. And then I have a very vivid memory of before a really big race when I was in high school. I was super nervous. I was going for some record or something, and I remember him just putting his arm around me, and all of a sudden I was super calm, and I went out and did it, and I'll never forget that feeling.
Based on what you saw, how did Joe live his life?
I think Joe lived his life. My dad. I think he lived his life, well, one, he was very ahead of his time. He, you know, I think he had love for everyone. He was kind of like the first ally, you know, kind of the original ally of all of, you know, for everyone. You know, I hear stories of him, you know, standing up for the LGBTQ community before that was a thing, back, you know, when he was in his early 20s. So that would have been the 1940s. I hear stories about him fostering over 50 children, and he tells me, you know, that they all just wanted to be held and loved, and that he gave them a safe place for that. So he was, you know, he was very, and then I hear stories about him going to these silent retreats, and the crazy health food stuff that he took. So he was very ahead of his time, but all encompassing that was love, and love for everyone, all humans.
What did a regular day with Joe look like?
A regular day with my dad, you know, we'd wake up and he would drive me to practice at like 5:30 in the morning, and bless his heart, he would usually wait for me at the pool and until about 8 o'clock, and then he'd whisk me back to the house, make me breakfast, and then I'd usually bribe him to take me to school because I didn't feel like walking. And then at the end of the day, I'd walk home from school and he'd drive me 30, 45 minutes up to Tacoma for my next practice. And during the day, he would have made me like a dinner. So then on the way back from practice, after 2.5 hour swim practice and weight session, I could eat dinner. And then he'd help me with my homework, and I'd go to bed, and we'd repeat that all over again. So he was the best.
Awesome. And do you have any remarks or wishes that you would like to say to Joe, your dad?
Dad, I just want to let you know that you're the best father that any kid could have ever asked for. I love you so much. Congratulations on making it to 100.
And is there anything else you would like to say?
You know, thank you everyone who's come out to celebrate my father. It means the world to my family and I. And yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Okay, if you can state your name and your relationship to Joe.
I'm Carol, and I'm his wife. Thank goodness.
Why do you say thank goodness?
Because I feel like the luckiest person on earth that we met when we did, and that both of us had the good sense to listen to our instincts and become a couple. And he's certainly done more for me than anybody, with the possible exception of my mother. You know, he's been a wonderful, wonderful presence and teacher without trying to be. I mean, he never sets out to be pedantic or anything. He just lives by example and teaches by example. Yeah.
So how did you meet Joe?
I met him on a cruise ship. It was very romantic. We were going through the Panama Canal. It was very hot. And there was one day when it was raining. We were at sea, and we sat in the restaurant on the ship that was always open. It was called the Lido. And we just talked and talked, and actually I just talked, and he listened. And I know this is going to sound strange, but I had never met a man before that who knew how to listen. And it was made a big impression on me. And we did that a couple of days. Time gets telescoped on a cruise ship, and it felt like I'd known him a really long time, and I wasn't going to let that go, and I didn't. He was a musician on the ship. I was a passenger with my parents.
And how has Joe impacted your life?
Oh, massively, massively. We've been together, well, since I count it since he moved here in June of 1984, so that would be, 38 years, more than half of my life. He's made me so much better person, and I don't mean, any kind of goody two-shoes thing. I mean just the value of being kind and being present and well, the theme of actually, I gave him a party for his 80th birthday, and a lot of people came up to the microphone and spoke, and the theme of that, most people talked about was being present, and that's still his value that I value. But the theme of this party, this week, with all the people that are on this tape, the theme has been get out of your own way, and that's his message. And he often says, I will not be unkind, and he has pulled me back once, and more than once, when I've been about to do something that I was going to regret, and has given me the gift of a future that I would not have had I done something else. Massive stuff.
And do you have any specific memories or fun moments that you recollect?
Oh, sure, lots of them. I probably couldn't recall them all up now, but there was one funny thing that happened on this trip. John was driving and Joe was in the passenger seat, and he says, "Dad, your birthday's coming up in the next few days." And Joe says, "Well, it usually does." That's Joe humor,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What does a regular day with Joe look like?
Well, right now, there's a whole lot of sleeping going on in this house. But up until recent years, I'm 71. When Joe was the exact age that I am now, he was the active, the active main parenting person for John, who was 5. At 71, I'm pretty fit, and I'm, engaged in life, but I don't know how I'd do with a 5-year-old right now. And Joe did this every day. He was
nothing but active and engaged and loving and caring and teaching in his own way. But right now, you know, it's kind of at the quieter end. You know? But you know, even with COVID, we have a lovely house. We have each other, and we not only love each other, we like each other. And we have a nice view out the window. We have good food to eat. You know, it's and he's made me actually, that's another gift he's given me, made me appreciate things that most people would think are really simple and basic, but turns out they're very important. You know? And if you don't know those things, you can live not only an unhappy life, but a life that is kind of unfulfilled. You know, and I've been saved from that. I appreciate the moments. I appreciate the present, and I appreciate the company I have. You know, being with him.
And from what you've seen, how has Joe impacted people musically?
Oh, musically, a lot. And you will find a whole lot of people who will say that. I have not pursued music very much with him, just because we've been so close. Otherwise, I've kind of felt like I needed to do other things, except singing with him. Singing with him is just a joy, because nobody else can accompany the way he does. He's amazing with that. But he's had a lot of students, and I think it says an important thing when your students come back and stay in touch with you. He's had a lot of people who are maybe 4 or 5 generations behind him who are still in touch with him, and they're still grateful for what they've learned from him. And it's not just piano, it's also composition or songwriting or life advice. You know, he's had, you know, people that he's talked to about whatever their major challenges in life at the time, and he's just managed to untangle things for them, which has an effect on their music, but even more so perhaps on their life. Music has been a wonderful thing. It's opened our lives to many people, that many of whom you're seeing, you know, today and the last time. But it's also it's a spiritual thing as well, and it's very, very important.
And lastly, you've had the blessed opportunity to know Joe very closely for the last 38 years. Do you have any wishes for him or any remarks that you would like to say directly to him?
Sure. My wish is that we get to do this again next year, you know. But whatever happens is, it's been my gift, you know. It's been the gift to me. I wish him what he gives to others, you know. I wish that life for him, and I think he would tell you that he has it, you know. He has often tells me that he's happy, you know, and that he's grateful, and I feel very grateful as well. So.
Okay, Joe. I've heard a lot of good things a lot of people said to you. A lot of people talked highly about you and how they were impacted. How does that make you feel?
How does it make me feel? I can't give you an answer because I didn't hear all of the stuff that preceded that.
There were many people that spoke before you, and they talked very highly of you.
Oh.
They also mentioned how you impacted their lives. How
Yeah.
does that make you feel?
I'm flattered.
Great. Second question. What did you do in your first 50 years of your life?
What did you do in the first 50 years of your life?
Mostly breathed.
Good answer.
That was it.
Well, what did you do though? Were you a musician or what?
Oh, did I did several things. I was involved with music in various ways. I played it, I studied it, and I taught it. And I had fun with it. And I also had some awful times with it. But it goes, that's about it.
Well, you also had, what was it, 58 different foster children? Or 80 some foster children?
Yeah, but you're asking me to go back over. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of foster kids, which were wonderful for me. Yeah, had a great time with them, especially the little guys. Yeah.
Did you make a living playing your music back then?
Yes. Yeah, not much. I never asked for much. And I didn't need much. I didn't need much money.
What made you get into music?
What made you get into music?
Go into music?
Yeah.
It was what I could do. And I enjoyed doing it. And I found out that people would pay me to do it. That's all I needed.
What about the second 50 years of your life?
What about the second 50 years of your life? What have you been doing?
Pretty much the same thing. With some things, a lot of stuff left out. I don't run as much. I'm not trying to get ahead. You know, a lot of the stuff that wears you out, I've dropped. I'm having a better time. I'm enjoying a wonderful, wonderful relationship with my darling here. That's been the main focus.
And your son?
And my son, yes. So that's part of it. The family, it's been around the family. The music has been important, but the family group, that's been the most important.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your family?
Huh?
Can you tell me a little bit more about your family?
Oh, here's my wife. Take a look. Right? She's brilliant. If I want to find out something unadorned and close to the facts, I go to Carol. If I want my answers checked for my additions of BS or not, I go to her. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. Do you have any advice for someone that's trying to get into music that's struggling?
I have no advice for anyone trying to get into music or doing that. No.
Okay.
Why?
Why? Because everyone is so different. Everyone, if they're going into music as a career, I have no advice. You have to find it for yourself.
Okay.
There's there are obvious things you don't do. You don't show up drunk. Yeah.
you come prepared, right? Yeah. But that's about it.
Okay. And do you have any life advice for younger people like me, for an example?
Advice?
Life advice for young people like him and me.
Okay. These are musicians now or
No,
not?
this is just general life advice. Nowadays, a lot of young people struggle with things that they shouldn't be struggling with, and not knowing what to do with life and where to turn, what to do.
Make sure you breathe deeply. And don't screw around with your breathing. Make sure the breathing stays clear. And make sure that you keep moving. And try at least a little bit to form your own opinions. And keep. That's what I would say.
You kept very active during your life, because I remember you were down below down here shooting arrows every day.
Yeah.
For
right,
exercise.
Right. Yeah.
How many arrows did you used to shoot? I can't forgotten.
Oh man.
25, 30 or what?
Yeah, just easy.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of arrows. It kept his upper body strength going.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and if you're a piano player, you need upper body strength.
Also, it's very good for the
your fingers. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions you guys would like to ask him, or have him say something?
What?
Yeah. When we decided to adopt
Yeah.
a child, you embraced that notion.
Yes.
Even though you were older than most parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were you thinking when you did that? How were you thinking?
I thought it was a brilliant idea, and that I was capable and willing to do the things that were necessary to make it work. I loved it. I loved every bit of it.
Yeah, it showed.
Yeah. No, I loved it.
I can share a wonderful story about Joe. When I went to his home, to play some music together. I'm a trumpet player, and I took my horn and I went to his house. And that's when they had recently adopted John, and he was a little boy, and we were playing, and John came into the room, and he climbed up on the piano bench alongside of Joe, and he looked at him, and he said, "Dad, have you always been this old?" And Joe looked back at him and says, "Well, I think so."
That's a Joe answer.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's something I have never forgot. That was a wonderful moment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think that was all my questions. If you guys have anything else to share.
Well, I'd just like to say on my behalf, Joe has been a mentor to me in not only the music field, and he's been a mentor to just oodles of people, musicians in the music field, for years and years throughout the Pacific Northwest. Many people looked up to him for guidance in music and style and all the things that he was able to show on the piano keyboard. He did marvelously. And also, he's been a great friend throughout the years, and learning about life experiences, his life experiences growing up in New York, and wonderful stories about his life experiences that I have committed to memory because they were so good. So he's been a mentor and a great friend for many years.
Wow. Oh, well, I'm speechless. But thank you so much. You are a dear friend. Dear friend.